Good morning and welcome to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Glad to have you aboard here on this Tuesday morning. Here it is, 23rd day of May as we head into Memorial Day weekend.
Yes, and we have May showers, don't we?
We sure do.
Instead of
April
showers.
bring Mayflower. What do May showers bring? I don't know.
A lot of humidity.
June flower and the June bugs and the mosquitoes, I would think. Yeah.
Something to look forward to, Bill. The
It sure
mosquitoes.
is. And gnats. Can't wait.
Yes.
Glad to have you aboard here this morning. And another hat thrown into the ring for president. The field is getting pretty large for the Republicans.
It's funny how that works. We do have a lot of great candidates.
Mm-hmm.
We all know that I love Vivek a lot. I think his messaging is on point. Tim Scott has been a great leader for conservatism. Great senator from South Carolina.
Yeah.
And he's, the thing is like the wider the spread gets, the more likely it is that Trump will be the nominee. And you know what? Trump didn't have anything negative to say about Tim Scott. He just wished him luck, which I thought was different for President Trump. A little different approach.
I think you said there's safety in numbers for him right now because he's far and away, of course, the leader. But Tim Scott and the political pundits and all are saying that this is a move to maybe go for the vice presidency, a cabinet position. You put your name out there. Even Glenn Youngkin now is has put together an ad that thinking about a presidential run at some point, probably 2028. But you think about that for cabinet positions, for vice president. Is it going to have gravitas? So Tim up in North Charleston yesterday, his hometown. I interviewed him when he was just elected to Congress some years back when I was at a change of command ceremonies over at the Marine Corps Air Station. And he was there for part of the ceremonies. And just a delightful guy right from the beginning and understood the significance of his not only being elected, but he also understood the significance of the fact that, he brought himself up by his own bootstraps and where he came from. And of course, I don't hesitate to use the word ladies on The View because they aren't. We're coming up with something like, well, he's the exception rather than the rule. He talks like, anybody can do this. And especially it was for a woman of color who was talking about this. Sonny, was it
Austin?
Her. And once again, the most dour, sour, absolutely negative people on the planet doing a show are named Whoopi, Sonny, and Joy. Just the irony there.
The other thing that's coming out with Tim Scott is like, what's wrong with him? He's not married. Like, it is ridiculous what people will come up with to come after you. Not everyone's path is the same. And like, whether he's married or not, like, who cares?
Yeah, really. So I didn't even, if that was even an aspect of his life, I didn't even know.
I just saw it yesterday.
Yeah, the subject's never come up. And who brought that up?
Oh, it was in one of the leftist, whatever they are, media, quote unquote.
Yeah, they got to make stuff up. It's a shame we don't have a real media in this country, but we're working here in our little voice in the wilderness, trying to get the word out. And Scott making his announcement yesterday up in North Charleston with lots of enthusiasm and a very welcoming crowd.
We live in the land of opportunity. We live in the land where it is absolutely possible for a kid raised in poverty, in a single-parent household, in a small apartment, to one day serve in the People's House, and maybe even the White House. This is the greatest nation on God's green earth. Today I'm thinking back to my grandfather, born in 1921 in Sally, South Carolina, in the Deep South. By the time he was in the third grade, he was forced out of school, his education was over, and he was forced to start picking cotton. But my grandfather lived long enough to watch his grandson pick out a seat in Congress. That's the evolution of the country we live in. My family went from cotton to Congress in his lifetime. And It was only possible because my grandfather had a stubborn faith. Faith in God, faith in himself, and faith in what America would be. He looked beyond the pain of his present, and he saw the promise of his future. That black man who struggled through the Jim Crow South believed then what some doubt now in the goodness of America. I was 7 years old when my parents divorced. We moved in with my grandparents. My mom and my brother, we all three shared one bed and one bedroom in that 700 square foot rental home. But my grandfather said to me, son, you can be bitter or you can be better, but you can't be both. You see, he chose patriotism over pity. He focused on the windshield of his life and not on the rearview mirror. And today, I'm living proof that America is the land of opportunity and not a land of oppression. Amen. But you see, this isn't just my story. It's all of our stories. The circumstances and the situations may be different. The details may change. But every single one of us are here because of the American journey.
It's nice to hear someone that is excited about being an American.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, he said that President Joe Biden, as the nation is retreating away from patriotism and faith, work and dignity, and also earn success, aspiration, and accountability. He said schools are suffering and crime is on the rise and law enforcement is in retreat. And one of my favorite line, I think, of the whole thing, Brittany, was when he said that these people on the left are taking the rungs off the ladder that I climbed.
Yes, they are. They're making it harder for people to be better in their own lives and being responsible and accountable to themselves.
Tim Scott is the epitome of the American dream. That I also love that line. We went from cotton to Congress in one generation.
Yes,
unbelievable, and that's the greatness and the glory of America. And you have these leftists that are sitting around and are trying to destroy this. We ought to have, if nothing else, we ought to have a course in Mother Goose rhymes as well as Aesop's fables in our schools these days, starting in elementary school. There are some lessons that can be learned from them, like the one about that we've talked about it before, the goose that laid the golden egg. When you destroy what has made you great, when you destroy the very fabric of what has made this the greatest country in the world, how in God's name did a country that came along and within less than 150 years became the most powerful, the richest, and the most desirable to live in history, when you had all these other civilizations that had been around for centuries, if not thousands of years, that didn't accomplish that? And it was all because we believed in the human dignity. We believed in the human spirit. We believed in entrepreneurialism, and that you leave people to their own devices and you leave them alone. And the big experiment that was only done once, really in history in Athens, Greece, and that didn't work well. It really was a democracy, but for the first time, they said the people will rule the government and not the other way around. And we've tried to turn that around because these people have gotten such power that we seem to forget the fact that they work for us. These Congress people and senators and all and everybody else work for us. I think one of the things that Harry Truman said as he was leaving office, he said, going back to the greatest title I've ever had, I'm just going to be a citizen again. I served my time as president and vice president, and I'm going to be able to go back to be with you as a citizen again in Missouri.
Yeah, though, I think that we were talking even earlier this morning about how everyone should have to own a business or have some sort of experience in a small business so they understand how much the government restricts what you're able to do and how much money they're taking from a business, and why, people want to complain about this $15 an hour thing, but it's like businesses don't operate on these large margins. They operate on very slim margins. And I think people need to understand what that looks like.
Mm-hmm. Somebody was said they did a survey sometime back, Brittany, of people. They were just asking doing the man on the street type thing. I'm sorry, person on the street, whatever it is on the street.
Man on the street.
Yeah, and
I'm traditional.
Yeah, me too. And we're asking, what do you think the profit margin is, or how much profit the oil companies are making? And most people were saying 40%, 80%. I mean, the numbers were just wild. None of them got it right, which was less than 5%. And I was talking, and we're going to be tomorrow. We'll have Tyler Merritt on. We showed he was on with Fox and Friends weekend with Pete Hegseth on Sunday, talking about how they were doing DNA testing, as it were, on the cloth and the supplies they were getting on all of their products that they produce, making sure that these products were not made or the cotton and all didn't come from a country using slave labor. And once again, I didn't know you could do that. But he was telling me about all the government regulations he's having and all the battles that they're fighting with all these Chinese companies and others that are pouring products in here that are priced way under 9-line products. And he said, a couple of years ago, he was paying $8 an hour now he's paying $18 an hour.
And probably still can't find employees.
Yeah. And very, very difficult to find employees. But look at what that does to your profit margin all the way around. So you're paying people $10 more per hour. That cost has to be translated into the products that you buy, or there'll be no products. And then you have these. We have no regulations or tariffs because the president took them off. When Donald Trump was in, he had the tariffs on at least on Chinese products and others coming into the country. And when Biden took all those off, now he's competing against these companies that are pouring all this product in here that are priced much lower than his and the 9-line product. So we'll be talking to Tyler tomorrow as well to talk about how they're trying to set the standard of telling these countries, we will buy from you if you are paying people a decent wage, and this is not slave labor.
Well, I also think you have to look at Americans also need to value things differently. Mm-hmm. We love a cheap product, but when we get a cheap product, usually, there are some stores you buy something from and you can wear it one time, you wash it, and it's done. And our friend Lizzie says this is Biden's America, and you're absolutely right.
You get what you pay for.
Yep. And I think that we have become such a country of consumerism that it's creating a huge problem, and it's making it harder for American companies to actually be successful.
That's the worst part of it. I want stuff made here. We wouldn't have been able to win the Second World War, fight wars on two fronts, an Atlantic War and a Pacific War, had we not had the manufacturing facilities that we have. In fact, when I was an ROTC cadet at Groves High School here, we still were marching and doing our practices with the M1 rifle that was made in World War II that helped us win World War II. And you could tell that the different manufacturers, that everybody was all in on making there were rifles in there that were made by RCA that makes radio equipment. It was made by Bendix, the people that made washing machines were also making our rifles because everybody was all in. And they turned these manufacturing facilities around. Just like when President Trump, when we had Operation Warp Speed, he was getting the ventilators. Who was making them? General Motors?
Yep.
Ford?
Yep.
So this great manufacturing facilities that we had in World War II allowed us to build as many ships and airplanes and submarines and all that we needed. We can't do that now. And that has to turn around.
It absolutely does. And Lizzie also mentioned that Kathy Lee Griffin was eviscerated for using cheap labor years ago, mm-hmm. which, we used to care about that kind of stuff, and now we're just so self-obsessed about how it impacts us. We're not willing to pay a little bit more to buy American, and like I said, it's a huge issue. We really have to get back to being America first. I know that there's a lot of people that believe in the global aspect of trade, which I'm not 100% against, but at the end of the day, Americans have to come first, and we have to be able to support ourselves here. The fact that a lot of our drugs are being manufactured by China makes me very, very uncomfortable, and I think that has to change immediately, if not sooner.
Well, the thing is, Brittany, this comes to the point where even I was asleep at the switch on that one. When the COVID thing hit and they said, well, most of 90% of our pharmaceuticals are made in China, I almost fell off the couch.
Yep. I think everyone was a little surprised by that. 2020 did have some silver linings, and that was one of them.
I mean, I knew that, I had a friend who was a drug distributor. He was a drug pusher. Worked for one of the big pharmaceutical manufacturers. And their stuff mostly was made either in Sweden or Switzerland or something like that, and some American manufacturer, or Germany. But China was never in the picture. At least at that point. And then, of course, I'm talking maybe 30 years ago.
Yeah. Things have changed massively.
Boy, have they ever.
And when we get back, we'll be talking about how our country's changing overnight.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934, with personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance. With integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
At Get Real America, we are focused on Savannah, but we'd like to hear from other communities as well. We have a lot in common. Come join us today at Sweet Potatoes Kitchen for some of that good Southern home cooking, like fried chicken, fish, and mouth-watering banana pudding. Say it's the best in the world, and you won't get an argument from me. Also, those vegetables are fresh and delicious. Voted Southside's best restaurant in Savannah at least 5 times, and large corporate parties are welcome. Tell them Bill Edwards sent you. Drop by and eat today. Everybody loves sweet potatoes.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Happy Tuesday.
Yes, and here we are. We were just talking during the break about how Atlanta is going to get $7 million for these migrants coming over the border to resettle them here in our state.
Yeah, I wonder where that money's coming from. Germany?
Yeah, the Germans, they've been so generous. They've been so generous.
Yeah, we're going to be paying them with German marks?
Yes.
Maybe Bitcoin.
Yes, and before we head into this topic, Lizzie says China has lowered emission standards too. Why aren't the climate scaremongers screaming about that? And our friend Steve Stanton is with us this morning, and he said, Confucius says, good things aren't cheap, and cheap things aren't good. I 100% agree with you. And Lizzie said...
And Confucius was Chinese.
Yeah. Imagine that. Mm-hmm. And she ate at Sweet Potatoes yesterday, and it never disappoints. You're absolutely right. Sweet Potatoes is one of my favorite places in town. So...
Without a doubt. And thank them for their sponsorship, by the way.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So the migrants coming into this country, I don't even think we can fathom what's going to happen. I think that we have so many. Number one, May 31st, did you know that they are going to stop the DNA test for verifying that children are actually with some of their family members?
Uh-huh.
What do you think that's going to do, Bill? I mean, it's going to save us money, but what else is that going to do?
It's always been, no, it's not going to, well, it's going to save us money on that end. Yep. It's going to cost us a lot more on the other end. What I don't understand, Brittany, is that Okay, if I were put on if somebody put me on a bus and they dropped me off in, Boot Scuff, Nebraska.
Okay.
And
Nebraska's beautiful, but
they let me off the bus. Beautiful this time of year, yes. And they let me off the bus. What am I going to do? I've never been here. I've never been to Boot Scuff, Nebraska. I don't have a job. I don't have any place to go. I might not be able to speak Boot Scuffese. What do I do now? What am I going to get to eat? Where am I going to sleep and live? Where do you go to the bathroom?
On the streets, and you take it from the stores?
Oh, okay.
I mean, here's the thing. These people are scrappy. I mean, they came, a lot of them did come across the Darien Gap, which is extremely dangerous. Mm-hmm. So these people are willing to sacrifice a lot, and I don't think that they're worried about taking food or, taking shelter from people. We've seen some of the incidents in Arizona and Texas where, it has not ended well, and they're just creating their shanty towns. So you drop a bus full of immigrants off in one place, guess what? They'll just build their own little shanty town wherever they can.
The worst part about this is, among other things, is that a lot of our food is growing. I don't know where these geniuses think that they are going to get food if we start destroying our farms, cattle ranches, and everything else. But we have a lot of food grown along our border, especially in California. But these people are coming across. They are destroying farm fields, killing cattle. And these poor ranchers are having one hell of a time. And if something happens, somebody dies on their property, they get arrested for murder.
Yep. Well, and it's decimating their land.
Yeah.
Not just the crops and everything. It's decimating their land. They're leaving all of this trash. I mean, you've seen it, Bill. I mean, where are the environmentalists? I mean, they don't care about. They don't really care about the environment.
They've already shown their hand
yes.
about whether they care about the environment or not. They would be over there, taking boats to China and saying, knock it off.
Yeah.
But I think they have a feeling of that they know what would happen. Who's respected? Who's got fear? You don't say anything about the peace-loving Muslims and all the things that they do in the schools, because those people have this culture of beheading folks that they don't agree with and appreciate. But Christians try to do something, and they know that we're not going. We don't have a history of beheading people. We don't have a history of going after these folks with a vengeance and threatening their lives. It's the turn the other cheek thing. Well, pretty soon, or you just bite your lip. All you get for that, as Dr. Laura says, is bloody lips. Mm-hmm. And sooner or later, we're going to have to start learning how to street fight more than anything else. And I don't mean by killing people. So now I know what the left thinks, because they make the running broad jump on these remarks when we're talking metaphorically here. The thing is that this has got to get under control. Who's respected by whom? The story years ago that came out that a nun who was raped and murdered in Chicago, and the police worked for months on the case and could not come up with a suspect. And the mafia up there, that's an organization that doesn't exist. It never has existed, and if you make fun of it, they'll get angry. But the organized crime people, mostly Catholic, didn't appreciate the fact that a nun was raped and murdered, and they put out a hit on this person. Said we were going to find out who it was, and when they found him, they were going to kill him. Within 45 minutes, this guy turns himself into police headquarters. Who has the respect?
Yeah, that's why the tough on crime policy that's what it has to be. Mm-hmm. Our friend Steve says, well, aren't they all engineers and scientists coming over the border? No?
Yeah, thoracic surgeons,
yes,
civil engineers, research chemists.
Yes.
Amazing.
Well, you know what?
Thank God.
Well,
because we need them. Because we need those people to clean our toilets and to clean and to cut our grass, according to some of these officials.
Yes. Well, the good news is that we have Mayor Adams from New York City solving all of our problems.
Bless his heart.
on the question of decompression. Would it be more helpful if it was the federal government directing where migrants are moved to throughout the United States, instead of you as New York City's mayor trying to figure out where you can send them within your state?
Yes, it would. We have 108,000 cities, villages, towns. If everyone takes a small portion of that, and if it's coordinated at the border to ensure that those who are coming here to this country in a lawful manner is actually moved throughout the entire country, it is not a burden on one city. And the numbers need to be clear. We received over 70,000 migrant asylum seekers in our city. 42,000 are still in our care. If this is properly handled at the border level, this issue can be resolved while we finally get Congress, particularly the Republican Party, to deal with a comprehensive immigration policy.
Yeah, let's just put them everywhere, right? I mean, that's the answer.
Spread the wealth.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that I didn't like that he said was that they're in our care. It's like, these people are adults. They should not be in the care of the government. And the funny thing is our friend Lizzie also reminds us that he campaigned on being a sanctuary city. So you get what you ask for.
You voted for this.
Yes, you did.
You voted for this. For those of you, if you're complaining about what's going on in New York, state-wise and everything else, you voted for this. You put Kathy Hochul in office for a full term. Shame on you.
Yep. And Steve Stanton says that they're also putting them in the $500 a night hotels. Yes, I know. More than I would ever spend a night in a hotel for. I mean, that's expensive. Yeah.
I mean, there are these 5-star hotels, and they're trashing them. They don't appreciate it. And when they were given free food, they said, we don't want that.
Well, and one of the hotels was actually owned by Pakistanis, which I thought was interesting. So I think it's also interesting to look at how much we're paying for these hotels and who owns the hotels, because I know that Feinstein's husband also owns a lot of the hotels.
Oh, speaking of Di-Fi, just while we have that file open, this woman is now totally incompetent. You think John Fetterman's bad? She doesn't know, literally doesn't know what day it is.
Here's the thing, Bill.
She's 91.
Yeah, like why do we have people in office? And this is not to be offensive, but at a certain point, people should retire and enjoy the rest of their life. They shouldn't be dealing. I'm sorry, politics is horrible. People are nasty, and these people are corrupt. Like, at what point do you just say, you know what? I'm going to ride into the sunset and enjoy the last years of my life doing something else.
Exactly.
And instead, she's wasted away in Congress. And I mean, she does. I think she has like a form of dementia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's totally. I mean, she's totally out of it. She has no idea what's going on. But pretty much for the most part. But it's an interesting thing about power. I'll go back to once again. I'll tell you a war story right after the break concerning power of President Eisenhower, and because he said he was only going to, he said he was just go continue to do a duty to his country after he'd helped us win World War II. He was going to just serve one term and leave. He served 2. Why did he decide to run for re-election? Tell you after the break. At Get Real America, we want to make sure that the real story gets out, and you can help us as a sponsor or as an advertiser to make sure that word does get out to the community.
Be a sponsor and support your local community here at Get Real America.
I don't think it's an accident that I ended up writing music for a living, because I think I lived in a house where I saw how deeply it affected everyone in the house. And just how much everyone defined themselves by the music they listened to.
Music as a framework, I think, gave my parents my identity from a young age. You can like any music that you want if it makes you feel happy. And now when I hear certain songs, I think of them, and I think of them in their happiest state, and it makes me happy.
If they seem like they're having trouble talking about something, I try to tell them about a time when I felt something similar.
Whatever the issue was, we would tell them the pros and cons and how important it was that they had come to us because we could always help them. I think the real important point, we always told them, no matter what you do, no matter what happens, we will help you through it no matter what it is.
Come join us today at Sweet Potatoes Kitchen for some of that good Southern home cooking, like fried chicken, fish, and mouth-watering banana pudding. Say it's the best in the world, and you won't get an argument from me. Also, those vegetables are fresh and delicious. Voted Southside's best restaurant in Savannah at least 5 times, and large corporate parties are welcome. Tell them Bill Edwards sent you. Drop by and eat today. Everybody loves sweet potatoes.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934. With personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance. With integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
We were talking about power just before the break and what it does. The old saw is that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And when Ike Eisenhower ran for president of the United States, the first time he said, I'm just going to go up, I'm going to serve one term and leave. Now, I had the honor of knowing, and my father was good friends with General Mark Clark, one of the great heroes of World War II, who became commandant of the Citadel in Charleston and lived the rest of his life in Charleston at a beautiful suite at the Francis Marion Hotel downtown.
Oh, wow.
And had a chance to go up there and see him on a couple of occasions. Dad would go up there and they had business dealings. And just a really, really first-class fine gentleman. So Eisenhower gets elected president, and so after 2 or 3 back and then, you didn't talk about the next election till about 6 months out. But about 6 months out,
that's probably lovely.
Yeah, it ought to be. And that would be like a 3-month campaign period, and that's it, and not a 4-year period. But he announced he was running for re-election, and Mark calls him. Said, Ike, I thought you said you were only going to run once. He said, Mark, when you get your hands on so much power, all this power, it is physically and mentally impossible to let it go.
That is so scary, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
That's very scary.
When you consider that you are the most powerful person on the planet. So I was told, when I was in the Army, that a general's desire is an order. If the general walks up to you and he may not give you an order, he might walk up and say, Lieutenant, looks like you need a haircut. The next time he sees you, you had better have had the haircut. A general's desire is an order. And for a president, I remember, even I enjoyed the TV series, The Left Wing, The West Wing. But they had some great lines in there. Aaron, what's his face that wrote the scripts was brilliant. I guess he wrote a lot of them in his jail cell because he was always in jail for drugs or something.
Oh.
But one of the things that Martin Sheen, I think a lot of people, it was so popular, a lot of people thought Martin Sheen was the president of the United States if you'd have done another one of those man on the street surveys. And they're sitting in Air Force One, getting ready to take off to go back home or something, and he's having a little conference with some friends. He said, "This is one of the best parts I like about this job." He walks over to the wall, he picks up the phone on the wall, and says, "I'm ready to go." and so it goes, because when Air Force One comes into town, they clear out all the airspace for 50, 60 miles around.
Mm-hmm. Shut down the city.
Yeah. Nothing else leaves or comes into the airport, wherever that is, while Air Force One is here. I remember that hideous incident, and there were plenty of them when Bill Clinton is in his first term in office, where he's sitting on the tarmac with the engines running, environmentalist that he is, for 2 hours in California because he went to get a haircut from Christophe. In Los Angeles.
Okay.
Yeah. So and the haircut was only $250, but he got the special haircut from Christophe.
Oh.
Well, the engines are running and no planes can take off or land. Yeah. So that's the kind of power that we're talking about here. They said Ike said once you get your hands on so much power, it is mentally impossible to let it go. So thank God we've at least got the 2-term limit.
Yeah.
In fact, there's some discussion we can have at some point of people saying that maybe the president ought to have only one 6-year term, like in Congress, like a senator, just one 6-year term, so he didn't have to worry about re-election campaigning all the time, whatever. Good idea or not?
Ooh,
but it's at the same time where you said, well, he's automatically a lame duck. In fact, that was I heard Peter Doocy, not Peter Doocy, his father Steve, this morning on Fox and Friends, saying, if Trump is reelected, he automatically goes in as a lame duck because he doesn't have another 4-year term to run for.
See, and I see him as like a warrior going in there.
I do too.
Destroying things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of things need to be destroyed.
Yes.
That are destroying this country.
Well, one of the things that I heard that I thought would be interesting for us to make back some money is that there would be a camera in the Oval Office for every person that he's firing, and it would be live streamed. Yeah. And people would have to pay for that, and we would put that towards our debt. Yeah. I thought that would be interesting, and I think that people would pay for it. Go back to the old days of The Apprentice, where he fired people. So I kind of am on board with that. We'll see if it ever happens, but a good way for us to make our money back, too.
Yeah,
pay down the debt. So who else is talking about this power issue is Tucker Carlson, and why the border is all about power.
Yeah. Tucker, take it away.
I recently watched a group of protesters, most of them young, denouncing President Donald Trump's immigration policies. They were waving Mexican flags and shouting, "Sí se puede!" Yes, we can. This is now the rallying cry of the open borders left, but it wasn't always. In fact, I wondered if a single person at the protest knew where it came from. The slogan first became famous 50 years ago, thanks to Cesar Chavez. He was the founder of the United Farm Workers Union. When Chavez said, "Sí se puede," he meant something very different. Yes, we can seal the borders. Cesar Chavez hated illegal immigration. He was Hispanic, obviously, and definitely on the left, but he fought to keep illegal Mexican immigrants out of this country. He understood that peasants from Latin America will always work for less than Americans will. That's why employers prefer them. Chavez knew that. As long as we have a poor country bordering California, he once explained, it's going to be very difficult to win strikes. In 1969, Chavez led a march down the center of California to protest the hiring of illegal immigrant produce pickers. Marching alongside him was Democratic Senator Walter Mondale and the Reverend Ralph Abernathy, the longtime aide to Martin Luther King. 10 years later, Chavez dispatched armed union members into the desert to assault Mexican nationals who were trying to sneak across the border. Chavez's men beat immigrants with chains and whips made of barbed wire. Illegal aliens who dared to work as scabs had their houses firebombed and their cars burned. Chavez wasn't embarrassed about any of this. He bragged about it. No matter. Chavez remains a progressive hero. President Obama declared his birthday a commemorative federal holiday. It's an official day off in a half a dozen states. There's a college named after him and dozens of public schools. Cesar Chavez's life is a reminder of how much the left has changed and how quickly. Until recently, most Democrats agreed with Chavez. They opposed unchecked immigration because they knew it hurt American workers, and they were right. One study by a Harvard economist examined the effects of the mass migration of Cuban refugees to this country in 1980, the so-called Mariel boat lift. He found that American workers in Miami with a high school education saw their wages fall by more than 30% after the refugees arrived. If you believe in supply and demand, this is not surprising. After the fall of Saigon in 1975, Democratic Governor Jerry Brown opposed letting Vietnamese refugees into California on the grounds that the state already had enough poor people. As he put it at the time, There's something a little strange about saying, let's bring in 500,000 more people when we can't take care of the 1 million Californians out of work. First-term Senator Joe Biden of Delaware agreed. He introduced federal legislation to curb the arrival of the Vietnamese. 2 decades later, leading Democrats were still wary of mass immigration, especially illegal immigration. As Bill Clinton put it in the 1995 State of the Union address, Americans are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country. The jobs they hold might otherwise be held by citizens or legal immigrants. The public services they use impose burdens on our taxpayers. No prominent Democrat would say anything like that today without being denounced as a racist. Clinton got a standing ovation. As late as 2006, there were still liberals who cared about the economic effects of immigration, legal or illegal. Immigration reduces the wages of domestic workers who compete with immigrants, explained economist Paul Krugman in the New York Times. We'll need to reduce the inflow of low-skilled immigrants. Mainly that means better controls on illegal immigration. That same year, Senator Hillary Clinton voted for a fence on the Mexican border. So did Barack Obama and Chuck Schumer and 23 other Senate Democrats. Not anymore. 20 years after Bill Clinton told Americans they had the right to be upset about illegal immigration, his wife scolded the country for enforcing border controls. So what changed? Not the economics of it. The law of supply and demand remained in effect. It's not a coincidence that as illegal immigration surged, wages for American workers stagnated. What changed is that Democrats stopped caring about those workers, about the middle class, really. Why? Here's the answer in 4 simple facts. 1. According to a recent study from Yale, there are at least 22 million illegal immigrants living in the United States. 2. Democrats plan to give all of them citizenship. Read the Democrats' 2016 party platform. 3. Studies show the overwhelming majority of first-time immigrant voters vote Democrat. 4. The biggest landslide in American presidential history was only 17 million votes. Do the math. The payoff for Democrats? Permanent electoral majority for the foreseeable future. In a word, power. That's the point, no matter what they tell you. American workers be damned. I'm Tucker Carlson.
That really scares me, Bill.
Yeah.
I just think that, especially after what you just told us about Eisenhower, like the power to control things, they will do anything at any cost. And our friend Lizzie said no to a 6-year term. The damage would be incalculable. And I don't disagree with her. I think that the first term you always see them be a little softer. And then in the second term, they do tend to go a little harder. But I think that it prevents them from going full force the whole time. But
that hadn't been the case. It wasn't the case with the Dalai Lama. He went in and I thought, well, he's going to be a little moderate at first. He wasn't. And then his chief assistant, who is now unfortunately is the president, because we were stupid enough to vote for this guy. He went right in. I mean, he hadn't, the ink wasn't dry on the, signing the papers when he said we're eliminating the Keystone Pipeline.
Well, and I think, so the one thing about Obama, and I was a lot younger and I wasn't nearly as involved in politics as I am now, and he seemed more moderate if you only watched the press conferences and didn't know the policy.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that that's also something that we miscalculate, is that most Americans are not as involved in all of this policy stuff, and they literally just see the press conferences. His speeches were great. My cousin called him the silver-tongued devil because he was very good at giving speeches, and people believed things that he said that were not true.
Yeah, I went to a big rally that he had when he was running for president over at one of the high schools in Beaufort County, and Battery Creek High School, and the place was just all giddy. It was Obama mania over there. And I was asking people, what did you like about this guy? I mean, I didn't bother, I didn't ask him and say, he's a communist. But but I mean, he'd been a senator for 20 minutes?
Yeah.
When he announced that he was going to run for president, and he only became a senator by accident more than anything else. This is a guy who voted 2 or 3 times in his state legislature not to fund if a baby makes it out of the womb safely, that go ahead and kill them anyway if you don't want them. Type thing, or if they get they get out and they need extra medical care because of something, he voted against any funds for that. So it goes back, and he was raised by a communist, a card carrying communist. You can Frank Lloyd Davis. You can look it up. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Even though he had he was half white, we could use he's half honky, all donkey.
Well, and Lizzie says good speeches appeal to low IQ voters, and I don't disagree with that at all.
Yep.
And we'll be talking about someone that got voted into the Nebraska House for some reason, and what's going on over there.
Having a big meltdown, and then a Georgia mom who lives nearby, and also a veteran teacher who lost her job because she was not in favor of the LGBTQ X04 -9 department.
Who is a kid? Well, that's a kid. And another. Look, a gaggle of them. Or is it a herd? Litter? Pride. But what about her? Tell her she's not a kid. Or him. So how do we tell who is a kid? Height? Age, maybe. But some of us have to grow up faster than others. A kid. A kid. A kid wants to make the world better. And one day, he just might. Is a kid fearless? Vulnerable? Strong? Nervous? Yes. 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 Kiwanis is 600,000 kids at heart doing all the little and big things it takes to help children around the world. Because kids need Kiwanis. All of them.
Savannah, I'm coming home. Savannah, we'll never be alone. Savannah, the beauty of the world. Savannah, let's all take a walk. Savannah, I'm coming home. Savannah.
When you're looking to buy a business or sell a business, the experts at Best Business Brokers have you covered. Whether you're ready to cash in on your years of hard work or you're taking that first step in buying a business of your own, they're here to guide you through the process and make sure you get the best outcome possible. By having Best Business Brokers assist you when you buy a business or sell a business, they handle the legwork of the intricate process. This ensures a smooth transition of ownership, allowing you to get to work immediately or receive payment for your business as soon as possible. With base operations in Savannah and Charleston, they service all of Georgia and South Carolina. If you're considering starting a business here, the mild winters and 5-tiered economic areas make these the perfect places to do so. If you're ready to buy a business or sell a business, then you're ready to contact Best Business Brokers. Visit their website at b3brokers.com or call at 912-349-0940.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934, with personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance, with integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Come join us today at Sweet Potatoes Kitchen for some of that good Southern home cooking, like fried chicken, fish, and mouth-watering banana pudding. Say it's the best in the world, and you won't get an argument from me. Also, those vegetables are fresh and delicious. Voted Southside's best restaurant in Savannah at least 5 times, and large corporate parties are welcome. Tell them Bill Edwards sent you. Drop by and eat today. Everybody loves sweet potatoes.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Glad to have you aboard on this Tuesday morning.
Yes.
And you sometimes wonder, how do these people get elected?
I don't think people know what they're voting for. I think that's basically it.
Yeah. Well, and when you elect somebody, you at least expect them to act like grown-ups, but not.
You're asking a lot right now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's true. That's true. So in Alaska, in Nebraska, it rhymes.
Yeah.
In Nebraska, there is a state legislator who seems to think that a trans is the most important person in the world, and because we're voting for legislation that says that you can't cut your children's organs off before they're 18 years old, she thinks is a good idea, and she's not happy with the legislation that Nebraska is passing on this. That went on for 3 minutes. We saved you the misery of having to live through all 3 minutes of it. Thank you.
I mean, we lived through a minute, I think, and I'm sorry. I don't know.
Hope you haven't had breakfast yet.
Well, I just don't understand why people, like, there's no such thing as being polite anymore. There's no such thing as, like, manners. I mean, it has just gotten, I mean, look at John Fetterman. He's in a hoodie and, like, sports shorts every day.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? I believe in tradition. I think that we need to keep some norms in place. I don't think that we should be going outside the lines on certain things. You know, I don't know what we're going to do, Bill. And we need to have, Steve Stanton said she was possessed. I don't disagree with you. These people are absolutely crazy.
Yeah, we need to call in the exorcist after that session.
Well, I don't know who looks at that person and says, she represents me. I'm thrilled she's up there representing me.
Yes, I'm sure proud of this woman.
No.
Now, this is the mindset of the left now. When I was, tomorrow you're going to meet the Georgia mom who was kicked off of her job as a substitute teacher right next door in Bryan County in the beautiful community of Richmond Hill. And your school board is out of control. Your public school system has gone to hell in a handbasket. I'm sorry to have to tell you that. But she said that we don't have debates anymore. We don't have debate teams or anything of that nature. And I can remember as going to, I wasn't on the debate team at Groves High School, but I was sitting in on one of their sessions and watching a great debate that our team was having with, I believe it was either Jenkins or Savannah High. And after the session was over, you got a good perspective from both sides of the argument, and the debate coach said at the end, he said, "Now, how many people here are in favor of capital punishment?" And about half of us raised our hands. And I said, "How many are not in favor of capital punishment?" And the other half raised their hands and said, "All right, now I want each of you to take the opposite argument, and we'll have a debate about it next week." So the people who were against it had to debate for it. People who were for it had to debate against it. And it gave a great perspective. And I went to that one, and it was terrific. And they brought out, a lot of good, and one of the main arguments against capital punishment was, what happens if you execute an innocent man?
Yeah.
That was the biggest worry and the biggest argument against it. That if you execute an innocent person, your stomach should turn.
Yeah, and so I was on debate team all through high school, and one of the things I loved is that I always had to think about what they were going to say to me and how I was going to rebut it. So you always had to think about the other side.
Sure.
And that's the thing. It made you really think about the argument and, the morality of things too. I think that we forget about that. Like, morals do matter. And we have forgotten that in this country. I think that that's the difference between the right and the left, is that we don't have the same moral standards. Therefore, we will never agree on certain subjects because of that. And I just think that it taught me that I could have an argument with someone and it was still okay. And I could empathize with their thoughts on something and understand them a little bit better. But we don't even practice that anymore. We've gotten to the point in this country that we can't even have a conversation about anything. And if they find out that you're on the opposite side of the aisle, it's like, screw you. I don't want anything to do with you.
This legislation in Nebraska and elsewhere, Chris Plant was having this argument last night on the new Chris Plant show on Newsmax. And they were saying about this transgender legislation. He said, this is to protect children. And the guy said, well, transgenders are so and so and so. He said, no. He kept emphasizing to the guy who was was opposing it, saying, this is to protect children. We're not voting against transgenders. We're not saying ship them out of the country, put them on the next Elon Musk, SpaceX rocket and send them to Mars. We're saying that the children need to be protected from having their sex organs chopped off before they even have the mental capacity to understand what that means.
And maybe we don't even have these arguments anymore, Bill. It's like,
yeah.
I understand that you are okay making sure that a child never has an opportunity to make a different decision.
Mm-hmm.
They will never have the opportunity to have children based off the decision you're letting them make at 7 years old. If you can live with that, then I guess that we're not on the same page, and I'm okay with that. But it's like using their argument in a way that it's like, if you don't agree with me, that's fine. But, I think using it in a way that kind of spins it and makes them really think about what they are supporting. I mean, if you look at the left and the right wants to protect children. They want to allow children to be born. And, on the left, they want to abort their babies, sterilize their kids, and, use abortion as birth control. And it's like, okay, well, if that's what you guys want to do in 15 to 20 years, that's fine. We're going to have a Christian society again.
Yeah.
Like, okay. I mean, there's the silver lining. That's horrible though. But that's the reality.
The terrible situation. These things are irreversible. And the drugs that they give kids, what's the
puberty blockers? It's Lupron.
Yeah.
Lupron is a huge issue.
And if you do that, the research shows that you will never experience sexual pleasure. So you will, even have the experience, it won't. There's nothing there.
You will never have a normal life, ever.
Exactly.
Ever. And Lizzie says Bryan County School Board president is not conservative-minded. And she also says anyone that supports transitioning children must read articles detailing how the surgery is performed. And I will tell you, when you look at the some kind of plasty that they do, but they take a portion of someone's arm to create the body part, that doesn't grow back. It's deformed forever. So not only are you deforming their, private parts, you're also deforming their arms. Yeah, it's just like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, and as far as Bryan County goes, they really think the board thinks a lot of itself. They voted themselves a huge pay raise a couple of years ago, and the superintendent got something like $100,000 pay raise.
Oof.
And he is now the highest paid person in Bryan County on the public payroll.
Sounds like Chatham.
Yeah, it sure does. Highest paid person. In fact, he is the highest paid superintendent of a school district that size in the country.
I think we're in the same boat.
Yeah.
Here in Chatham County, we have a lot of work to do. I will not see you guys tomorrow. You will get Bill, and that will be exciting and fun, and you'll see me on Thursday.
And we'll talk more about this Georgia mom, Lindsay Barr. There's a happy ending to this story. Come and see you tomorrow.